Kenya and South Africa will work together to build a consensus among African countries around the issue of the renewal of the AGOA, the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, with the US, and also the Strategic Trade and Investment Partnership. And we have agreed that ahead of the US-Africa Summit that is going to take place next month in Washington, D.C., we are going to rally together the other African countries that are going to persuade our colleagues within the US administration, within the Congress, that extension of AGOA beyond 2025 is an issue of absolute necessity. The SCFTA conversation is not going to be a dialogue among governments only. The private sector voice must be on the table. In this regard, Kenya is proud to announce that in partnership with Standard Bank of South Africa, who are here today, we will host the first ever Africa Private Sector Alliance Conference in Nairobi in the first quarter of 2023 that will bring together Africa's top 50 companies in support of the ACFTA. So this is not going to be only a discussion among governments. We are working together to bring in a private sector, our big companies that have got the biggest influence within Africa, because ACFTA is not for the benefit of government. ACFTA has got its owners, and its owners are the private sector within the continent. Kenya and South Africa are not in any regional common tariff regime. So the low volume is not by accident. There's a reason to it. Any efforts for a bilateral solution, when we try to have a bilateral solution within each other, is frustrated by non-African countries invoking the most favored nation status. We are actually joined together more by music than by trade because of Kenyans' love for Kwaito music. Intra-Africa trade starts at 19%, as composed to 70% intra-EU trade. Yet, we have a low-hanging fruit in the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, with a population of 1.2 billion people and $1.4 trillion GDP. To enable our 110 million people between our two countries trade with each other, and with the 1.1 billion Africans, it is important to talk to some countries to unlock the South African Custom Union so that we can kick off the guided trade mechanism that exists between ACFTA countries. And Kenya has indeed already started trading with some countries as far away as Ghana under this framework. Yet because of some of these bottlenecks, which are actually very solvable, we are unable to invoke the same to trade with our sister nation of South Africa. Even as we work on ACFTA, we have a lot to gain by activating the SACU EAC COMESA tripartite agreement, thus freeing trade among 800 million Africans. 11 countries have deposited TFTA agreements, and we need only 3 countries to deposit to make the agreement effective. Kenya and South Africa need and are going to work together to get the 3 countries out of the remaining countries that includes Tanzania, South Sudan, the DRC, Ethiopia, Eritrea, the Sudan, Libya, Tunisia, Lesotho, Mozambique, Seychelles, Comoros, Malawi, and Madagascar. Only of those 3 countries can unlock trade between 800 million people. And only 1 country within SACU, which I will not name in this distinguished gathering, but I have shared with our 2 excellency, we need to do something so that indeed we start to trade, 1 among 800 million people, and secondly among the 1.2 billion people within the Africa continent.
Last year, total trade between Kenya and South Africa was only 6.5 billion South African rands, a fraction of what it can be. Your Excellencies, South Africa exported key inputs into Kenya's industrial supply chains, including coal to power Kenyan industry, particle board used to make furniture here, steel to be transformed in Kenya, and car kits that are assembled in Kenya. Kenya is now South Africa's largest global supplier of fresh flowers. But we also recognize that the overall level of trade is not sufficient. Indeed, it went down in both 2020 and in 2021. And in particular, South African exports declined, which we look to reverse. At the same time, there's vast scope for more Kenyan products in the South African market, from the delicious teas and range of fruits to Kenyan manufactured articles. Minister Kuria and I are already working on unlocking those opportunities. Firms from both sides see opportunities to invest. There's a Kenyan investor in South Africa in a large nut plantation in macadamia nuts. PG Bison has invested in Kenya manufacturing for furniture, and Distell in beverage manufacturing. Standard Bank and MTN are investing in Kenyan infrastructure. All of this is about growth, about jobs, about trade. Trade, Your Excellencies, have been in the blood of our people for many centuries. Communities in present-day Kenya and South Africa were part of the great network of trade routes that stretch along the Swahili coast. The great trading centers of Mombasa, of Lamu, of Malindi, and Gede. And this community connected with the Southern African kingdom of Mapungubwe. These trading cities also traded with the rest of the world, with China, with Europe, with the Middle East. And they connected parts of the African continent, facilitating the flow of goods among Africans in gold and salt, in beads and carvings, in ivory and gum, in metalworks and textiles. Colonialism interrupted and deeply damaged the indigenous development of African trade and caused harm to our societies that has lasted for centuries. Today, Africa has the opportunity to decisively turn the corner, and that's what the state visit is about. His Excellency President Ramaphosa, His Excellency President Ruto, leading the way to reverse the legacy of the past. And so today, we have this opportunity to hear from the two Excellencies on their vision, and as members of the respective cabinets, we've already been put to task to step up the work that we do in order to address all the challenges that have come out in the business forum, in the bilateral trade talks.
We had a conversation with the captains of industry
projects that will ease project financing by the financial institutions, particularly business that is represented in this delegation on the state visit today. And our president, our very own president, President Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa.
Rose Narula, who is the representative of businesses in South Africa, to continue to improve the environment for doing business in the two countries, including easing the visa. The forum appreciated the political goodwill expressed by the two heads
and the whole continent, and called on financial institutions to increase their lending to these sectors. In this regard, two countries. Paragraph 10. The forum took note of the progress always want certainty and predictability and stability. We wish to commend you and your government on many and most occasions, and particularly in healthcare. So drawing from that lesson, in a mere 20 years' time, 1 out of every 6 citizens, financial institutions.
Are you exporting to South Africa now?
We do export, but there were some challenges with the SPS issues. We want to South Africa give us limited access.
We also produce avocado. Yes. I'm sure yours are the best.
From the motorcycle assembly regulations, which has forced local content. We find that this is an oil filter for Bajaj. Right? And before we never used to make it.
First one from the Faso Jack. Thank you so much. Thank you.
especially cereal, yes, especially for export.